My gaze dropped to my clothes, and for the first time, I noticed what he was wearing. Not his usual jeans and t-shirt, but loose, white pants and a matching shirt, the kind of clothing patients wore. My breath quickened, the room spinning around me. This wasn't right. This wasn't happening. The door at the end of the hall opened again, and this time someone stepped out, a man in his late 40s, with a kind face and a cup of water in one hand, a small paper cup of pills in the other. The man smiled gently, the way you might smile at a frightened child. "It's time for your meds," the man said softly, his voice soothing, as if trying to calm him down. I shook my head, backing away, my mind racing. No, no, this isn't right. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm just waiting for my... The words caught in my throat, the truth finally hitting him with the force of a sledgehammer. I'm just waiting. The man with the meds stepped closer, his movements slow and deliberate, as if approaching a skittish animal. "It's okay," he said in that same soothing tone. "Everything's going to be okay. Just take your meds and we'll get you back to your room. You'll feel better soon." He wanted to run, to scream, to do anything but stand there. But his feet were rooted to the spot. His mind was a whirlwind of confusion, fear, and denial. How could this be happening? How could he have forgotten something so fundamental? "I'm not supposed to be here," he mumbled, his voice shaky, barely above a whisper. I was just waiting." The man with the meds smiled, but it was a sad, almost pitying smile. "I know it's confusing," he said, his voice calm, like a parent explaining something to a child, "but this is where you're supposed to be. You've had a hard time." Before he could finish, something snapped inside the patient. A flash of anger, of fear surged through him, overriding the fog of confusion that had clouded his mind. He slapped the cup out of the man's hand, sending the pills flying across the floor. The man barely had time to react before the patient's fist collided with his chest, the force of the blow staggering him backward. "Get away from me," I shouted, my voice raw with panic. "I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not crazy." I stumbled, clutching my chest, but before I could respond, two more orderlies emerged from the hallway, their footsteps quick and purposeful. Their faces were grim, expressions hardened by routine, as if they'd done this 100 times before. "No, no, no," I cried out as the orderlies closed in on me, their hands grabbing my arms with practiced efficiency. I thrashed against their grip, but they were strong, far stronger than I was in my weakened state. The panic in my chest grew, blossoming into full-blown terror as I realized I couldn't escape. "Hold him still," one of the orderlies ordered, his voice cool and authoritative. The other nodded, tightening his grip on the patient's arms, pinning them to his sides. The patient fought, my mind a swirling storm of fear and confusion. But it was no use. I was no match for the two men. I felt a sharp sting in his neck, something cold and metallic, and he realized with dawning horror that one of the orderlies had injected him with something. "No, please," I mumbled, my strength ebbing away as quickly as it had come. The room around him started to blur, the faces of the orderlies and the man with the meds blending into a haze. The fight drained out of him, my limbs growing heavy, useless. The orderlies eased him back down into the chair, their movements efficient, almost mechanical. I sagged into the seat, my body going limp as the drug worked its way through my system. The world around me began to fade, the edges of my vision growing dark, fuzzy. One of the orderlies knelt in front of me, speaking softly, but the words were distant, unintelligible. My mind was slipping again, sinking back into that familiar fog. I tried to cling to something, anything, but there was nothing left to hold on to. Nothing but the empty waiting room and the ticking of the clock. The orderly's voice faded entirely, replaced by the rhythmic sound of the clock ticking away the minutes. I blinked slowly, my eyes heavy, and when I opened them again, the orderlies were gone. The room was empty once more, silent except for the hum of the fluorescent lights. I looked down at his hands, feeling an overwhelming sense of déjà vu. Where had I been? What had just happened? It was all so confusing, my thoughts jumbled and disjointed. I couldn't remember why I was here, couldn't remember how long I had been waiting. My mind wandered, circling back to the familiar thoughts, the familiar worries. How long had it been? I glanced at the clock on the wall, but the numbers swam before his eyes, refusing to come into focus. It's 3 o'clock.